All right, let's talk about something we all do, putting up with nonsense. You ever wonder why some people treat you poorly? Why they disrespect you, ignore your feelings, or take advantage of your kindness? Here's the hard truth. People will keep doing what you allow. We like to think that respect is automatic, that others will treat us well because it's the right thing to do. But the real world doesn't work that way. People test boundaries. Some do it intentionally. Others don't even realize they're crossing a line because, well, you never stop them. Think about it. Maybe a friend keeps making jokes at your expense and you laugh it off even though it stings. Or a coworker constantly dumps extra work on you and you say nothing because you don't want to cause conflict. Maybe a partner makes plans without considering you and you just go along with it to keep the peace. At first, these things seem small, but over time, they add up. And here's where it gets worse. The longer you tolerate something, the more normal it becomes to the other person. They assume it's fine. And why wouldn't they? If someone disrespects you and you keep showing up, what message does that send? This is how cycles of mistreatment begin. Not because people are cruel, but because they're unchallenged. You don't have to scream or fight, but you do have to decide what you will and won't accept. And that starts now. Let's get one thing straight. You train people on how to treat you. Every time you let something slide, you're sending a message. This is acceptable. Keep doing it. It's not about blaming yourself. It's about understanding the pattern. People don't always mistreat others out of malice. Sometimes they're just doing what's easy, what benefits them, or what they've gotten away with before. If no one ever calls them out, why would they stop? Think about it like this. If someone borrows money from you and never pays it back, but you never ask for it, what's their takeaway? Probably something like, "Oh, they don't mind. I can do this again." Or if a partner always dismisses your feelings and you stay silent, they assume it's no big deal. This isn't just about big, obvious mistreatment. It's the little things, too. When you tolerate lateness, people stop valuing your time. When you let passive-aggressive comments slide, they become normal. When you always say, "it's fine," when it's really not fine, people believe you. And here's where it gets dangerous. The more you tolerate, the harder it becomes to stop. You get used to shrinking yourself, to avoiding conflict, to making excuses for others, but deep down, resentment grows. And the longer you allow disrespect, the harder it is to demand better. So here's the truth. If you want respect, you have to show people what that looks like. If they don't listen, that's your sign to walk away. All right, let's be real. We've all tolerated things we shouldn't have. Not because we're weak, but because confrontation is uncomfortable. It's easier to brush things off than to start a conflict. But over time, those little things pile up. Maybe it's your friend who only calls when they need something. You drop everything to help, but when you need support, silence. You tell yourself, that's just how they are. But the truth? You're allowing one-sided relationships to drain you. Or your boss who keeps piling extra work on your plate. You tell yourself, I don't want to seem difficult, so you say yes, again. Meanwhile, your stress skyrockets while they assume you're fine handling the load. What about in relationships? Maybe your partner always makes decisions without considering you. You feel ignored, but instead of speaking up, you think, I don't want to start an argument, so you keep going along with it. And just like that, your needs become an afterthought. And let's not forget those harmless jokes people make at your expense. The comments about your weight, your job, your habits, always disguised as humor. You laugh it off, even though it stings. Over time, those words chip away at your confidence. See the pattern? Tolerating disrespect, no matter how small, teaches people that it's okay. And the longer you allow it, the harder it is to change. So ask yourself, what am I putting up with that I shouldn't be? Because if you don't put a stop to it, no one else will. Tolerating bad behavior doesn't just affect how others treat you, it affects how you see yourself. At first, you might not notice it. You tell yourself it's not a big deal. You convince yourself to let it go, to be the bigger person. But over time, something shifts. You start feeling drained, irritated, maybe even resentful. You wonder, why do people keep treating me like this? But deep down, you already know the answer. The more you tolerate mistreatment, the more it chips away at your confidence. You start believing that this is what you deserve, that speaking up is pointless, that being unhappy is just part of life. And that's dangerous because when you accept that narrative, you stop expecting better. Maybe you stop voicing your opinions because people don't listen anyway. Maybe you avoid confrontation because you're afraid of being labeled difficult. Maybe you stay in a toxic relationship because leaving feels scarier than staying. This is how people get stuck in cycles of unhappiness. Not because they want to be miserable, but because they've normalized it. And let's talk about the anger that builds up, not just at others, but at yourself. You start resenting your own silence, your own unwillingness to walk away. You wonder how you let things get this far. But here's the good news. The moment you recognize the cost of your tolerance, you can start changing it. You don't have to keep paying the price. You get to decide what you allow, and that choice starts now. Here's the thing. Setting boundaries isn't rude. It's necessary. People act like saying no is selfish, like walking away from toxic situations makes you a bad person. But guess what? Protecting your peace is not a crime. Think about it. Every time you say yes to something that drains you, you're saying no to yourself. Every time you let someone cross a line without consequences, you're teaching them that your feelings don't matter. But the moment you set a boundary, everything changes. Boundaries show people what's okay and what isn't. When you stop tolerating disrespect, people either adjust or disappear, and either way, you win. The ones who respect you will stay, and the ones who only wanted to take advantage will leave. That's a good thing. It's a good. And let's talk about peace of mind. The more you enforce your boundaries, the lighter you feel. No more resentment, no more exhaustion from constantly giving without receiving. You finally get to prioritize yourself. Saying no isn't just about rejecting others, it's about choosing yourself. It's about recognizing that your time, energy, and emotional well-being are valuable. Walking away from situations that don't serve you isn't weakness, it's strength. So stop worrying about upsetting people who don't respect you. If someone gets mad at your boundaries, that's their problem, not yours. You don't exist to make everyone comfortable. You exist to live a life that actually makes you happy. All right, so, tolerating nonsense isn't the move. Now what? How do you actually stop putting up with it? Here's what you do. Get clear on what you will and won't accept. If you don't know your boundaries, how can you expect others to? Take a step back and ask yourself, what behaviors drain me? What makes me feel disrespected? What have I been tolerating that needs to stop? Write it down if you need to. The clearer you are, the easier it is to enforce. Stop making excuses for people. They don't mean it. That's just how they are. Maybe I'm overreacting. No, if something bothers you, it's valid. If someone constantly disrespects you, it's a pattern, not a mistake. Stop justifying mistreatment. Speak up early and often. The longer you stay silent, the harder it gets to change the dynamic. You don't need to be aggressive, but you do need to be direct. Try this. I don't appreciate jokes like that. I can't take on extra work this time. That doesn't work for me. No long explanations. No apologizing for setting a boundary. Say it, mean it, move on. Enforce consequences. A boundary without consequences is just a suggestion. If someone keeps crossing the line, act on it. That might mean distancing yourself, walking away, or cutting ties completely. People learn quickly when they see you're serious. Surround yourself with people who respect you. When you start setting boundaries, you'll lose some people. But that's a good thing. It makes room for those who actually value you. Respect attracts respect. When you stop tolerating nonsense, you'll see how much better life feels. It's not always easy, but trust me, your future self will thank you. At the end of the day, people will treat you the way you let them. If you tolerate disrespect, it won't stop. If you keep making excuses for bad behavior, it will continue. But the moment you decide you've had enough, everything shifts. This isn't about being harsh or shutting people out. It's about respecting yourself enough to demand better. Because if you don't, who will? You're not here to be someone's emotional punching bag. You're not here to be walked all over, ignored, or taken for granted. You deserve respect, care, and consideration, just like everyone else. But you won't get it by waiting around, hoping people will change. You have to change first. Change how you respond. Change what you allow. Change the way you see yourself. Because the moment you start acting like someone who deserves respect, the world will follow your lead. And yeah, not everyone will like it. Some people will push back, get mad, or try to guilt trip you into going back to your old ways. Let them. Their reaction isn't your problem. Your job isn't to make everyone happy. Your job is to protect your peace. So here's the bottom line. You encourage everything you tolerate. If you want better, expect better, demand better, and don't settle for anything less.